Holistic by Shiana.
Hi, I'm Shiana. Welcome to Who You Callin' Holistic. I am here today with my guest, Shanika. Before we get into all of that, I'll give you a nice little intro. We are recording today at GOT Sound Studios. Shout out to Neek. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share to this podcast. Make sure you subscribe to my Patreon and leave a review. When you leave a review, you know, it gets people talking good things about me, and it helps me out. Look at me. It helps me. This is on Do Not Disturb too, so it doesn't matter. It helps me out, and it helps other people know about me and what I'm doing, and I need that. So, hi, Shanika.
Hi.
Shanika Pishi.
Yes.
I want it to be fancier than it is. Not to say that's not fancy, but I want it to be Piche.
Which is actually what it's supposed to be. But I guess my ex-family decided to Americanize it, and it's Peachy.
Okay, shocker. People Americanizing things. And we'll get into that today, too, because...
Well, right?
Because, so, when I was talking to Shanika before this interview, she had been... I'm saying she, I'm talking to you, but I'm telling the audience, you know, what are we going to discuss? And I was like, yeah, I'll give you like a few things. But I was just thinking like, there's so much we could talk about because I don't know if you realize how much we do have in common. There's a lot of like overlaying things that we have in common. And I was like, I didn't even recognize that until I was listening to some of your podcasts and stuff. And I was like, what the hell? So, but yeah, so you have... you have two podcasts.
Yes. One of them's dormant, and then one of them is fairly new.
Okay.
Yes.
You have two podcasts. You have Sebastian Harper, which is a product line of
skincare, body products, room sprays, sage clearing sprays, body oils,
candles,
face mist, candles. So my sister does more of the candles. She does pour one for me specifically.
Okay.
Yes. And then I have...
And that's the Calm the Fuck Down?
Yes, it is. Oh, so we can cuss on this podcast?
Yeah.
Okay,
it's me. So, what kind of question?
Well, I know it's also YouTube, you know. So.
Oh, okay. We're adults. Kind of.
Come at me. So, yes. And then I have the candle, the Calm the Fuck Down candle. And and then with my products, I grow some herbs and I infuse it in the products. So I think I gave you a face mist, right?
You did.
So,
the floral face mist. It's nice.
Yes.
It's a good little refresher.
Yes. So
I've been using it.
I'm like out in the backyard with a distiller. My dad's like, girl, you out there making moonshine? I'm like, Daddy, go inside. And just making face mist. So yeah, that's what I do with Sebastian Harper.
And we'll get more into that. You also have, you do Reiki things.
Yes.
Shout out to your teacher.
Shout out to Shiana.
Shout out to your teacher. And you do stretchy things.
Yes.
We have a video together.
Yes.
So people are familiar with, if you haven't seen the video, I've made a reel. It's gotten a lot of shares and a lot of, hopefully a lot of clientele at some point for you with it.
Eventually we'll get there. Speaking into existence.
Yeah. Shanika does all the things.
Yes.
And you also, on top of all of this, have children.
Yes.
Jesus.
2 boys. Yes, I know. I'm a multi-hyphenate, to a T. And, when I look back at my life, I'm like, come on, girl, you should have never been in an office.
Right.
That just life was never for you. And I was someone that was just always passionate and really into a lot of things. But, so I'm 40. So I'm kind of like in that between stage of you have one job, you retire, and then you enjoy the rest of the years that you have. But I'm also...
According to whose rules, though?
The generation before you of like what you would see.
Got it.
And I also now understand the younger generation. They're like, I think I'm going to jump around a little bit and see what works for me. And if I don't like it, I'm going to quit because, the universe has got my back. So I understand both sides. So I definitely feel my Gemini self always struggling to be like, maybe I should just go get a 9-to-5 and say to hell with it all.
Right.
But then I'm like, no, that's just not me.
Right.
Keep going. Life is short. I don't want to be on my deathbed regretting.
Or life is long.
Life is long. It's true. Life is long, but I'm like, I always take it to the deathbed. I'm like, I want to look back and be like, you know what? I did what I wanted to do. No regrets. Last breath. I'm good to go.
And it's funny you mentioned that because, I was in massage school in 2011. And so I was in my 20s. And even then, we had students that were in their 50s, 60s, even 70s that were like, I don't like what I do anymore. I had a time with it, whatever. I want to do something that I enjoy doing, and it's time to switch it up. And these were, retired age people that were still wanting to work and do something to help be of service to others, if anything.
Yes.
And I think that's what a lot of us are searching for, is something to be of service. But you're doing all the things to be of service.
Yeah. And it kind of also reminds me of my therapist, who I absolutely love. She told me that therapy is like her second career. She was in corporate America, got let go, and she was like at 40, she just went back to school. And I was like, oh my God, you're so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's never too late.
I love with you as it is. Yeah, it truly isn't. And, so like I said, I recently turned 40, and I've been kind of like letting go of a lot of things, how I thought life was going to be to how I want it to be, because I think at 40, you still have as many years ahead of you as you do behind. And so I'm like, okay, I really need to just rev it up and get going. And that's where I am right now.
And I often wonder when people talk about having like a midlife crisis, like what age is that exactly? Because
I know they say it's supposed to be at 50, but no one really lives to 100. So I think the midlife crisis is really about, I would say, the 38 to maybe like 45, if we're being generous.
I would say like 35-ish.
I was thinking that too, but I was like, God, 70 is so young to die these days.
Well, I mean,
but I know it is happening.
People can die tomorrow at any age.
Okay, fair.
So who's to say like there's a midlife crisis for anybody in particular,
And then that kind of, which we'll talk about, brings us to yoga, which basically prepares us to die. And it's a beautiful thing.
Oh, geez. That got dark real quick.
I can bring everything to yoga.
You can, or dark, because that's,
That's not dark. That's not dark. Death is not dark. And that's, okay, so that's another thing that, especially the American culture, we have wrong. Death is not dark. We are all going to die. And that doesn't have to be a scary thing. That is just a fact of life. We cannot dodge death. But what we can do is live a life that is beautiful and great. So when death comes, we are ready. And that's why people are scared of death, because we are not ready. That's why we say all the great things about people after they died, or, oh, I wish I should have done this, or we do the life changes.
Y'all better give me my flowers now.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think also, like, on top of death not being, like a scary thing, Americans make it so sterile. So it very much is viewed as like, it's there's like this walking on eggshells around it. There's like this, instead of a celebration. Because like, I don't know, have you been in Jamaica before?
No, I haven't.
Okay. I know when I went to Jamaica, like there were like, we're walking down the street, heading back to our hotel or something, and there's like people in a truck with loud ass drums. There is like a whole party going on. And I was like, what in the world is going on? And they were like, oh, somebody died. And I was like, what?
I experienced that when I went to New Orleans.
Okay,
it was a carnival, basically.
Yeah. And I was like, this is how I want to go out. Like, celebrate me this way. Like, party bus or like party truck, whatever. Bring the drums, bring the band. Yes, let's do that. But even, like ancient Egypt and stuff, death was a whole nother, it wasn't even like death. It was like a whole nother, it was an afterlife.
It was like death was not the ending. So, we Americanized it.
And when I mentioned the things about you being dark, and it's interesting, I have these theories. I don't want to call them conspiracy theories. That's not it.
Listen, I love a conspiracy theory.
I mean,
sometimes.
I think a lot of us do.
And people are like, oh, I can't stand conspiracy theorists and they're the worst. But, sometimes I like to dip in a little bit.
Yeah. You got to explore some of it. But what I've recognized and realized is a lot of the Gemini people that I have in my life are more open and drawn to the darker elements in the work that we do.
Yes.
Like if you look at you and I, how we approach our work, you even have the podcast on horror movies. Like I live alone. I live near the woods.
Okay.
So like that's a part of it. But like I don't want to watch those. I have no desire.
Okay.
I don't, because I'm like, I'm going to have these dreams, or like I'm going to be checking my door over and over, like not my interest. And then my other Gemini friends are the ones that are channelers, are the ones that are like all the way into the like dark, feminine, witchy shit. And I'm like, look at you doing all, like you even said, you're doing the herbs in the garden, and you're making the mists, and you're making the.
Yes.
And I'm like, so it's a theory of mine.
Yeah.
You know, these Gemini women that I know, they're more witchy than the other ones that I know.
For sure. I mean, once a week, my dad's like, "What are you doing, voodoo woman?" I'm always doing something. I mean, just even from the fact, like, I'll take my scrap fruit and vegetables and, like, I'm throw them into the woods to, like, have the animals eat them or whatever.
Offerings.
Yeah, like the offerings, or I'm like, you know, putting my crystals out, or I'm like burning this or that, or, you know, I was telling my sister about, like, my money box and how I put, like, mountains in there and like Reiki, and she's like, "Well, what's a money box and this and that?" And
What is a money box?
so, and I kind of got it from you from when we were doing Reiki, because you told me about the box that you have, or the container you have for prayers. So
My Reiki box.
yeah, your Reiki box. So basically, I just found, like, a really cute box while I was out thrifting, and cleansed it, blessed it, and I just put in there just different amounts each day, and then I do my Reiki symbols on it, and then I create, like, an orb, and just, you know, take a nice deep inhale, exhale, and then just hold it, and I feel, like, the warmth happening, and then I kind of usually get, like, a shudder, and then I know, like, it's good to go. Sometimes the amount comes through, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower, but the whole thing is just to be thankful for it all, and that way the universe continues to bless you with more. And then the thing is, you're supposed to take out paper after a while and kind of rip it up as if you're spending the money. So what I'll do is I'll date it, and then I'll put an amount and bless it.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah. And I have it, like, by my altar and everything.
I like that. I just recently moved my Reiki box from the corner it was in to my altar. So then I'm like, I feel like it's even more supercharged.
Yes.
And, like, I don't know why it wasn't on my altar before for whatever reason. But yeah, it's there now. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. But I've cleansed it recently. I've, like, written down some more things. I've gotten rid of, because a lot of times whenever I do a Reiki box, I actually put the clients that I've worked distance Reiki on in there as well. So I love that Reiki box.
Yes.
But I like that money box idea too.
Yeah.
But I put all the things in there. So I guess I put the money and the blessings and the manifestations.
Yeah.
It's like a catch-all.
I could probably put it all, but I feel like I need to keep things separate. So speaking of, and you'll appreciate this because you're always telling people to write that shit down, I have 3 journals.
That sounds like some shit Shiana says.
I do. Write that shit down.
That sounds like some shit Shiana says.
Your mom. She's the best.
Shout out to Pat.
I was just not ready for that. Okay, so
who's also a Gemini, in case you didn't know.
Yes, that's right. I remember you telling me that. So I have 3 journals. So one is just for... I'm a Gemini. Stop. So I have one for just manifestation. So I write things as if they've already happened, you know, how I'm feeling. So right now I'm doing like a 30-day manifestation exercise. I have one where I do the same affirmations every day, just write them down. And
11 times?
Third. So should I do it 11 times? I don't, honestly, I just write it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like whatever the rules are, you make them up for you.
Exactly. Sometimes I have to pick and choose because I can get really intense about it. And so then my third one is just kind of like whatever is in my mind, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I just kind of feel like I don't want all of that energy to touch.
Same.
So that's why I have 3 journals.
I get it. I recently told somebody about the Rocket book. Have you seen that?
I don't think so.
It's like a reusable notebook because I was one of those people that had several journals and I did the same thing, especially like if I wanted to write down things that were just in my mind, I needed to get it out. I didn't want it with my manifestations or, you know, the things I wanted to happen already, you know, even though it was like tearing the page up. But a Rocket book is, it's got like some special pen. You can also use it to erase, and it's got like a cloth that you can wipe it down, but you can upload it to a drive with the QR code on it.
Okay.
So you can reuse and change pages. You can use all the pages, and you can have different folders for your manifestations, different folders for your brain dump, different, you know, like you can have those things.
So are you writing with kind of like a stylus type pen or something? Okay, see, I don't know. Maybe it's like the old school in me, but there's just something about pen to paper.
No, it still feels, because I was concerned about that too. It still feels like a good pen. It feels like a pen that somebody might steal from you, because you know how that is. Like when you get a good pen and somebody's like, oh, this is nice. I know,
because I love my Sharpie 5-point
Well,
pens.
no, it's good. It's a good one. It's a good one.
Okay.
Check it out. Check it out. Anyway, so back to like some of our similarities and stuff or whatever. So you are also a military brat.
Yes.
You are the youngest of 3. And what else? I mean, that's some of them. But knowing what you know now and like the upbringing you had, because I don't know if you were raised in South Carolina or if you traveled before that.
So I was born in Hawaii. Then we went to Kentucky, Germany, Missouri. Then we came here. So I came here when I was 10, so I've been here the longest, but I still don't claim South Carolina.
Same. And I've lived here like all of my life.
Yes, because I feel like the first 10 years were just like the most, I don't know, the prominent years where we just jumped around. So I still tell people like I'm military.
Same.
And people will still ask where I'm from because I think my accent, just because we've been around so many different people, I can just pick up on whoever I'm speaking with. And so I used to get a lot of times like, are you from Charleston? I'm like, no, I'm not. And it's because my family's from Panama and they have an accent as well. So again, people think automatically Black accent, you must be from Charleston. Well, I mean, nothing wrong with being from Charleston. Love Charleston, but I'm just saying, it goes further than that. So yeah, I've been here 30 years, but like I said, I still don't claim South Carolina.
That's okay. So were you the first in your family to start getting into the herbs, the witchy things, or were your brother and sister kind of open to those things already?
No. So I was the first, but I wouldn't say I was the first in the family. Okay. I'm like, I don't know how much I should tell. So there's some witchy things that were done back in the day, back in Panama, that my grandmother may or may have not done with my brother who had asthma, and she used to make him a special tea to help with it. Okay. So, yeah, it's always kind of been there, but then we've always kind of had like our superstitions and whatnot. But I would say definitely diving into like the herbal stuff. Yeah, I would say I was probably the first.
Because I know for my family, like I know my sister was into Grateful Dead things growing up, so that was my intro to like whatever alternative things.
Okay, yes.
And like astrology things. I knew of those things, but she wasn't doing Reiki. She wasn't doing any herbal things. It wasn't any of that stuff. But when I spoke to my mom, like about her side of the family, because when I started doing Reiki, again, my mom's the Gemini, which should be the witchy one, right? But when and she does, my mom be knowing things. She does know. But when I started doing Reiki, she was like, oh my God, like when I started doing the Reiki water and it tasted different, she'd be like, oh my God, are you a witch? And I was like, oh my gosh, here we go. And then she would tell me stories about my aunt, who is a Pisces. And for those who listen to this podcast, y'all know I say it all the time, Pisces love a drug, but it's for escapism because they feel all the things. They are so attuned to like the other realms and mystical experiences. So my mom would say that my Aunt Bernie would always have, she would see dead people. She would have like wild dreams, blah, 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 blah. And then my Aunt Bernie was the one that drank the most alcohol in the family. And then it was just a few years ago, and I was like asking more questions, because this is what we do now that we're like, tell me more about this part of my family that you didn't want to tell me about before. Also, why was this a secret? Because that's how that generation does too. Everything's a secret. Don't talk about it. But I was like, I'm just going to let you know, I don't think Aunt Bernie was lying. And because she would say, like, she was like, yeah, Bernie said that all the time. Like, we just always thought she was making it up. We thought she was lying. And I was like, no, knowing what I know now.
Yeah. I've had that in my family too. And I was just thinking about my son. He's a Pisces, and he's definitely he's the one who comes to me. He's like, can you give me your blessings? I have something coming up. And he usually means like, give him some like Reiki healing. I kind of also think that intertwines with like mental health as well, just kind of like brush that off of like, oh, they're just a crazy and this and that. Because when you're saying that, I can think back to certain stories that I heard where like aunts or, grandmother or great grandmothers were saying and doing things. And they're like, oh, just a crazy woman, da-da-da-da-da. But you're like, was she crazy? Or was she really seeing this? Or was it like mental health or what was going on?
Like we need more, we need receipts. We need to ask more questions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what's it like being the trailblazer in the family then, especially with children?
So, okay. And I guess I'll start with saying like horror stuff. I've always been into that. I was watching horror movies before anyone should be watching horror movies. It's just kind of in my blood. And that did come just from my brother. He loves it. I don't know. I've always just been different. And before I struggled with it, I was the person liking the quote unquote white people music. Again, watching horror movies and just like being into stuff that was considered, white or whatever. So it was a struggle just kind of growing up just as a little Black girl, just like wanting to have the friends and fit in, but just really just not being the same. And then just kind of the same with the family, just being the youngest. And I always say I'm the black sheep, but like in a good way. But now I don't know. I'm just at a point where I'm like, I don't care. You're going to see me laying out my crystals and doing this and doing that. And you're just going to ask me what I'm doing. And if you want to say it's Makulusia, go ahead and say it's Makulusia. So that word is charm. That's the Panamanian thing. And what's so funny is, when we're like, growing up and we're like playing games, my mom's like, I'm going to makulusia you and this and that. And that it means charm, but she isn't someone who probably consider herself witchy. But
right.
It's like, you have it in you.
Right.
Like you're saying it.
Right.
Whether you're saying it as a joke or not, it's there and you believe it. And it's so funny. I just interviewed them for my podcast and we actually talk about two historical figures in Panama that one of them has a religious background and the other one is like a witchy person that instilled fear into kids. And
the religious one instilled fear?
Well,
or the
well, I mean, both really.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, well, shocker, but okay.
I know. Yeah. Well, I mean, but yeah. Both did. But so I think I'm just like the one that's more like outward about it. And I'm the, let me make you a concoction person. I remember maybe 10, 11, 12, I don't know, teens. I've just always been into skincare. That's my thing. And reading these magazines, I'm like, can I have $20? Because they say that this clay comes from the Mediterranean Sea. And I was like, I'm giving you $20 for this. And so you flip to the next page. It's like, here, how you can make your own face mask with oatmeal. So I'm going downstairs and I'm stealing oatmeal and I'm mixing it up and I'm taking the mayonnaise and then why are we finding the mayonnaise jars underneath the sink and why are you putting garlic in the nail polish and da-da-da-da-da-da. And, I just remember like my sister smirking like she's so stupid. Like that's some white shit right there.
Right.
But I'm like, well, this is what the magazine said to do and I wanted to have a certain look. So I did it.
I wasn't into the skin things when I was looking in the magazines. I was, or even like playing growing up, I was always outside with the animals though, which when we look at our adulthood now and how it's like, of course, this stuff makes sense. So I was making concoctions for animals and bugs. Yeah. And like did you have an invisible friend too?
No. Okay. But I do talk to myself a lot.
Okay. All right. Well, I had an invisible friend. Shocker. I had an invisible friend. I don't even remember like the name, but I do remember like there was something next to me. So it was, looking back, it could have been like me now talking to me then or something. When I think about the things that we know now, that could be a whole nother episode because I don't even know how to get into that. But when you talk about white people shit, because I discuss that often on here, and I'm biracial, but my growing up thing was like a lot of times I was too white for black people. And too black for white people. So how does that translate for you? Was it the same?
Oh yeah, I get called Oreo all the time. Get told I spoke like a white girl.
Yes, whatever that means.
I mean, the call's coming from within the house, like.
Yeah.
So I remember like one time remember when you could get like 10 CDs for like 30 cents, whatever that scam was. And I got like all these CDs and then like my dad had snatched a box and he's like, what's up with all these white people? You're a sellout. And I'm like,
oh no.
I'm like, I just want to listen to Creed. Leave me alone.
So I didn't have that well, in a way. Okay. Which is, that's also like an interesting dynamic because you're trying to, it's like you're trying to own up to your authentic self and be who you want to be, but your parents are like, no.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that? Why are you listening to that? Why are you playing? Because mine was like white Barbie dolls. We had white Barbies, and we didn't have Barbies that looked like us. Well, kind of, not all the way. There were very white or very brown. There wasn't anything that looked like me with my hair texture, with my complexion, none of it. So the closest thing to me was one that looked like my mom. And my dad used to be like, stop giving her the white Barbie dolls. Give her some black ones. And my mom was like, she don't want to play with those ones. And like, he would try to get those ones and I wasn't playing with those ones. But again, they didn't resemble me.
Yeah.
Or like people that were next to me.
See, so with that, my parents, they got me all kind of dolls, like black, white. You know, my sister was huge into Cabbage Patch. And you know,
I loved Cabbage Patch.
Like,
I can smell it.
Yeah. So with that, they weren't like, you know, black dolls only. And I know some people, they grew up where it was like, you know, only black dolls. But I don't know. And then also I think it was like military. So it's like whatever the PX had, like,
right.
You know,
right.
Just like, you just get it. It's tax free. So I played with all types of toys growing up, but I don't know. And then now it's like, it bothered me then, but now I can realize, oh, they didn't know better, you know, not just like downing them or anything, but you know, there's just so many things that are really white supremacy is instilled in, you know, just like even like, oh, you're one shade, you know, darker, like don't tan this and that. And
I love to get a tan.
Or like your color is pretty. I'm like, I like to get a tan too. And I mean, clearly I don't need it, but I like to tan. It feels good. I'm always still saying like, God, one day I just want to get in a tanning bed just to know like that feeling. I know it's terrible for the skin, but I just want to like know what it's like.
Just to do it.
But now I can look back and be like, you know what, honestly, they didn't know better. We didn't know better. It was just like a lot of white supremacy is instilled in a lot of things that we are taught. Because listen, rock, all of that, it started within the Black community, okay? Ska, you know, like no doubt, absolutely love them. But a lot of that is stolen from Black culture, mainly Jamaica, ska music. And then it comes here and it's like a mix is put on it.
So that leads me into the next part.
Okay.
Yoga.
Yes.
And whiteness.
Yes.
Before you get on your spiel, what got you into yoga? Because you're a yoga instructor.
Yep. So
how long have you been practicing? What got you into it?
I've been practicing for about 20 years. I started in my 20s. Like most people, I got into it just like, oh, let me stretch and whatnot. Back then I was a runner, you know, working out, doing other stuff, and no one likes to stretch. I was like, I'll just do yoga and that'll be my stretch. And started looking into it more, was like really just fascinated and in awe of how powerful our bodies could be and the poses that people could do. I'm just like, this is absolutely beautiful. And I still think it is. And, you know, put it off for a long time. And then finally I said, you know, I'm going to go for my yoga teacher training. I'm really liking how this feels, you know, the breath work, all of it, but I need more. Like, how can I share this? How can I teach this? So I got my 200-hour training and learned, I don't know a damn thing about yoga, which was the beautiful thing. And then I, again, wanted to know more. While I was doing my training, it was 2020. The Black Lives Matter movement was happening and COVID was happening, and what I was being taught and then what I was seeing coming from the yoga community just wasn't the same, because yoga is about like Sangha, community, and, you know, there's 8 limbs of yoga, and, you know, some of them are how you treat others, how you treat yourselves, and, you know, we're seeing Black people getting killed, and all I'm hearing from the yoga community is, love and light, y'all. I love everybody. And what happened to all lives matter?
And putting the black square on their picture
or
to show that they were supporting.
Or waiting until some white illustrator makes a beautiful graphic of George Floyd with flowers around his head that they can post on their Instagram to make sure it doesn't mess up their aesthetic.
Yeah, because it's got to be the right picture. It can't. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I'm like...
Bring it down, because I know you get heated about it.
I do.
I can feel, like, when I see you post things on your story, I can feel it.
Yeah, because, and then, you know, when I did my 200-hour, and you're just so excited and you want to teach people what you learn. So I was still at a point where I was kind of staying quiet because, you know, I don't want to step on toes. I want to be hired by a yoga studio. And
fuck them toes.
Girl, fuck them toes. Fuck them toes.
That sounds like some shit Shiana says.
I mean, well, you know, well, like you said, you see my videos now, you can probably see my progression of the less fucks that I give as like the days go on. And it's just going to continue to happen because, like I said, I am living my life up to death and I need to look back and be like, good to go. So, you know, I just remember, and like, there's part of me that still wish I posted it, and I've done better now. But I remember when all of this was happening, the facilitator of my training, she reached out and she said something about COVID, which I understand that was brutal as well. But when it came to Black Lives Matter, nothing happened. And I wanted to post, yoga teachers, owners, check on your Black yogis because we are not okay. Mm-hmm. And the silence that happened from the yoga community, I was just like, wow. It's like heartbreaking. I feel like I'm about to cry now because I was just like, I'm being taught all this love and like, let's go out and do this. And, you know, yoga is not even about the poses, it's about how you treat people. And like, okay, but you guys are not even acknowledging that Black people are dying and that we are not fucking okay at all. And so it was with my 300 hour, it had social justice, inclusivity in it. And from there, that just kind of became my thing where I was just like, listen, yoga is truly for everybody, but I need to make sure that I'm doing my part to represent that. So that's kind of been where my passion has been lately about it.
So how did we get there? Because if I wasn't hit to the game, then I would think from what is pushed on media and magazines and exercise on YouTube, like if you Google yoga, what I would think is it's some sort of exercise or, it's a good stretch session that you need to learn from a white person or,
that's like a size 2.
Yes.
At the highest.
Always in a matching outfit.
Of course.
Always.
Sponsored by Aloe.
Yes.
Yoga.
Yes.
I mean,
Lululemon.
you can sponsor us. Please sponsor us, okay?
Especially because melanin.
Yes.
But how did we get here? How did it become so whitewashed?
That's a great question. So when I'm just going to say, when you're looking for a training, make sure that you look for a 200-hour training that includes the history of yoga. Because when it was brought here, the word yoga was not even used. It was
here is in America.
Like in America, like in 1800s, I think it was like the late 1800s, Yogananda. He never even used the word yoga. He just kind of like talked about it. Honestly, I think we got here because of capitalism. That's how we got here with a lot of things. Just like it's the impact over intention. It's kind of like, how do you, what's that one cult leader that drink the Kool-Aid? I heard his background and I was like, oh God, he started with like such the greatest intentions, but something happened and it just went really bad.
Power hungry.
And I think that's just what happens. People just get power hungry and they want the money and they're just like, oh, I can capitalize on this and I can capitalize on people's insecurities and their fears and their doubts. And it happens to be women, usually white women, that you can capitalize on with that. I recently read a book earlier this year called The Gospel of Wellness, and that's basically what it was, because it's usually women. We feel like we are not seen at our doctor's offices. We try to tell them what's going on. Like, oh, just do this, just do yoga, blah, blah, blah. So what do? We start following an influencer who starts talking about the same issue. And we're like, yeah, I have that issue too. And they're like, you know how I cured mine? I just ate fruit all day. So what do? You start eating fruit all day because, well, if it cured her, it's going to cure me. And then like, well, you know what? I've started taking these supplements now and I've been working on this for years. And now you can have this supplement too. And that's what happens. You just go and go and go. And I was talking to a friend last night and I know you said it. I'm like, I could start a cult if I really want to fuck around and find out. I could start a cult, but there's just
6'3" things, or 6'2" things.
But there's just like that part of me where I still have morals. So I know.
Or darn.
I know. Gosh, listen. So it's just kind of capitalizing on people's self-doubt. And that's how we got here with yoga,
What can we do moving forward to make it more inclusive?
So first of all, the main thing, and I've even gotten on you about it, is stop talking about, I can't do yoga because I'm not stretchy. And I said, first of all, you're a healer.
I am stretchy though.
Okay. Or what was it? You said something before, or like flexible or something, or anyways, I was just like, take the physical out of it.
Because you said yoga isn't just...
It's not, that's the asana. So there's 8 limbs of yoga. The yamas, niyamas, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dhyana, Dharma. I'm going to get it messed up. And then the last one is Samadhi, which is like bliss. And basically we are living our lives to get to like the bliss, where it's basically you are kind of outside of your body, just observing.
I've been there on a walk before with a microdose. I just started like smiling and I was like, I had nothing going on in my mind. And I was like, try to think of something and I couldn't. And I was like, this is what bliss is.
That's Samadhi. Okay, so there you go. So don't talk about how you're not a yogi. Like I've told you before, I'm like, you meditate, you pray, you heal, you're a yogi. And
so yoga isn't just doing stretches.
It's just not the physical. That is just one limb. So I think that's the main thing, is that people need to stop looking at it as just a workout. And that's what kind of have happened in yoga studios.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, it is. It is a lifestyle. I remember, again, during my training, I couldn't make it one night because my son, his school was having like a mother-son dance. And the teacher was like, that's yoga. Just like you being there is yoga, not coming and missing out on that. And I think that's what people need to realize more. It's how you live your life. It's not like the stretches that you do or how flexible you are. That's a beautiful part of it. You know, when you are within a pose, for example, take chair pose. People don't like it because you're lowering the hips. The arms are up, but let's relax those shoulders. Let's relax the ears. Oh, but also let's lengthen the crown. Lift that chest. And by the way, did I tell you to breathe? But what is that doing? That's getting you ready for life. I don't want you to be in chair pose thinking about, oh, my thighs, this and that. Yeah, that's great. You're going to get firm thighs, but let's take it a little bit deeper. Let's take it to, wow, I haven't been in this pose this long. Wow, this is not so bad. Maybe if I just relax, let me stop thinking. Let me just stay in this moment. Let me just breathe. And isn't that life?
Breathing.
Yes.
Breathing is, like,
exactly.
essentially life.
So that is what I want people to take from yoga. And that's kind of like become my mission.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now with some of these, because I'm pretty sure you're familiar with my story where I worked at a place that offers yoga things and it's very aesthetically pleasing. And I felt like the help. And I'd never felt like the help. And like, I felt like the help that time. And they still follow what I do, by the way. Like I see them on my
and I remember they shout out y'all.
Hey guys. They still watch what I do. And I'm like, are they just watching to steal the things that I do? Or are they
probably, and if they are, that's okay.
Yeah. Because you can't take my juice with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, listen, I'll tell you the formula for everything. Doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Okay. I mean, that's like when people, my sister and I talk about it, like the vendor life, and people ask us stuff. I'm like, we'll tell you all, because are you going to be out here every week through the weather, dealing with people, this and that? Like,
I don't have the patience for that.
Exactly. Like, come on,
I'm like, please come to me for my services.
File your taxes. This, like, let's go, come on. It's not for the faint of heart, So I've definitely have taken a step back from the studio. So I stopped teaching at studios. It just was not in my heart anymore. And I've been having things just kind of come to me. I've been feeling here in Columbia, there's a shift happening, and I've been seeing it happen. And I hope I'm kind of part of the shift.
You are, if you say you are.
Okay, I'm part of the shift. So
that sounds like some shit Shiana
there
says.
You go.
I'm part of the shift, y'all. And just my heart wasn't in it. And I've been having things just pop into me. So I'm like on my notes app, and I have articles I want to write, or maybe podcast. And I'm actually going to start a Patreon for it, because I'm like, this is going to be behind a paywall, because we're going to get real, y'all. So you don't have to pay for this. There's enough
to pay for this.
There's enough free resources on my Instagram as it is, but I'm like, are yoga studios ruining yoga? And it's been kind of like a resounding yes from people I've talked to about it. And 3 things that I think that yoga teachers need: more pay, more respect, and we should be able to be filed under insurance.
Yes. I used to say that about massage therapy before.
Yes, I mean, there's so many healing modalities that need to be under it. Because, like I went to college, I did traditional schooling, but like me saying I did 200 hours of training is not an easy feat. On top of that, that does not include the studying that I did out of the classes. That's just the 200 hours I was in front of my teacher.
Right.
That doesn't include the additional classes I had to take and evaluate, the reading that I had to do,
The self-studies that you did.
the self-study, the teachings like I had to do with other people to like prepping, and then add on top of that the 300 hours and thousands of dollars that I put in. So why should I not make a living wage off of this?
Right.
And that's become like another thing where, I don't knock it, like free yoga here and this and that, but it's like you can't really have a sustainable practice if you're just like popping up here and there. And a lot of times people that are owning these yoga studios tend to be white women that are older or, like have a husband that's established. So they're okay with it. Not me.
Right.
I'm the Reba McEntire song, the single mom that works 2 jobs. And so I'm like, I deserve to be paid what my worth is. And I'm going to get it and I'm not going to budge.
Yeah. And you actually, what I push a lot is, and kudos to you for this, because a lot of people, they take the classes, they take the courses, they do all the studies, but they're not embodying the lessons and the work that they're doing. They're not embodying and integrating and making it that lifestyle. But you actually, it is your life. Like even the things you've shared, the way you interact with your kids, the way you interact with the community, you do embody that lifestyle. So like, yes, you do deserve.
Thank you.
You do deserve.
So yes, that's where the Patreon will come from, because I was talking to my therapist and she's like, she always has women, sitting on her couch that do yoga, but they're scared to go to the studio because they're Black or, bigger body and this and that. And I'm like, okay, what can I do to help? And at first I was like, oh, maybe I can do like a consulting, 30 minutes and, 30 minutes, $30, and ask me anything. But I was like, well, maybe they don't have 30 minutes worth of questions. Maybe they just want to know 1 or 2 things. So this Patreon will be people. Of course, there'll be different levels. Submit a question and I'll just like answer all the questions and you'll have access to that. Because I didn't, for example, Om. Why do we chant Om? I did it in yoga classes, but I didn't know what Om meant until I took the training. So, people kind of shy away from that.
Why do we chant Om?
Okay, so Om, so we have what's called Sushumna, and it's within our spine, and it's like the life force. So that's like the pranayama. And so Om is actually AUM, and it's like broken down to 3 different things. So when you're saying Om, it's Om. So going
Root to
all
crown.
the way up. Yes. So it just hits at different parts. So it's just kind of like the vibration that kind of goes out into your body, kind of goes out into life. Even if you say it quietly and no one hears you, it's like vibrating. So one of my facilitators in my 300 hours, like chant it and then drink water, and then it'll also change the energy of that. And I thought that was pretty cool as well. So, I mean, but before in class, I'm just thinking, oh, I'm just going to do Om awkwardly because my teacher's telling me to do so.
Right.
Another thing is Om does actually extend your exhales. Like if you want a longer exhale, like if you just, exhale regularly, but if you chant Om, like it can sometimes double it. So it just all depends on, what you want to do with it. But I didn't know that before.
Right.
And there's so much more to talk about with Om, but it's like, at least I know now what it's about. And there's a lot of studios that are shying away from using Sanskrit. And
Just trying to whitewash it.
I don't like that,
Yeah.
And I will not forget, it was during my 300 hour, there was a teacher, her name was Raquel Bueno, and
she was no bueno?
She was bueno. She was
okay.
the shit.
Okay,
okay. I love Raquel.
Okay,
like
cool.
I still follow her, love her. She'll sometimes comment on my things. I'm like, thank you. And she was like, listen, guys, if you want to be in this, you got to learn how to start saying things right. You want to be in yoga, you better respect the history, you better respect the language, and that's learning the Sanskrit. And a lot of people are probably going to take offense to that, but I was like, you're right. Because I used to be one of those people that are like, oh, I'm not going to say this and that. And maybe I don't say all the Sanskrit, but I will throw it in.
Well, I used to feel like that about Reiki because, even in my training and what we're taught and what I teach my students is it's a Japanese healing technique. But again, a lot of these things that we hear about didn't necessarily begin there. Like it got more awareness there. But then I took a Reiki class that was Kemetic Reiki, and it was about Reiki taking place in Egypt. And I was like, well, this makes more sense though, because you see the hands on the higher or whatever the walls and stuff, and they're doing the hand things, and that's the transference of energy. And you're like, this makes sense. So like, why isn't this being taught in the way that? But again.
I know. So those are the things that I want to bring, because I think everyone should know about it. It shouldn't just be like a select few. It needs to be everyone if we're going to talk about yoga.
Yeah. And I think, I think it's one of those, just like you said, you think insurance should be covering yoga. I think yoga, along with other things, because I could throw Reiki in the mix with this too, but just like emotional regulation, those kinds of things, they need to be in schools. They need to be in places taught for people's upbringing, not just like something you get into as a hobby when you're an adult. Like these things are other ways for us to heal, or other ways for us to have support, because you probably have people that you met in your yoga courses that are still, obviously you just said Raquel, but they're still a part of your life. They're still in your community. And like community is the overall theme for how we're going to get through this shit called life.
Sangha. Yeah. I like community. I can't even tell you just how important it is. And that's just something else I've had to unlearn, where, we grew up like, you don't tell people what's going on and this and that. And you just kind of like stick to yourself. But like I said, single mom, I'm like, listen, yes, I love my kids, but sometimes I need help and sometimes I need a break. And, I'm thankful, like, we stay with my parents, and they're helpful, but sometimes it's like still, like I'm doing a lot alone, and it is freaking exhausting.
I mean, I just have Lennox, and I'm exhausted at times.
Yeah.
So like, I can't even imagine. Yeah. So like, please give yourself some grace, and like, shout out to you.
And I'm doing better with that. And I just feel like for the past maybe like 4-ish years since my divorce, I kind of was in like a survival mode, just like go, go, go. And I was telling my friend Janelle, Janelle, shout out to Janelle.
Hey, Janelle. She better be listening.
Oh, she will.
Okay.
No, she will. My fellow Gemini. I love her. I always say, like, if she and I ever fall out, we're going to therapy, because I was like, I will not start over on another friendship. Like, you are in it till we die.
Long haul.
Yes, you are in it forever. Afterlife, we're buried next to each other. Okay, but like, she gets it all from me. But I was just like, I really need to give myself more credit for how well adjusted these boys are, because I am someone, I don't believe in the like toughen them up for like the world. My boys,
at least soften them up.
No, they're softened up. Listen, we cry.
I know you said you had a Pisces, so I was already like, oh.
And then my youngest Sage, he's a Gemini, so we're flighty. We're in the air. God bless both of us. But I guided them into therapy quick.
Yay!
Like they've dealt with stuff. I'm like, they're like, oh, the world's tough. I'm like, they've already dealt with, things on their dad's side that's pretty rough. And if I was a different type of person, like, they could have been within that cycle. Like, they don't need any more roughness in their life. So if that's me busting my ass to make life as easy for them as it can be, so be it. And that's like where I am, right now. Because I've had people like, oh, like, why don't you have a house and this and that and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, well, because I am paying for
you don't even
no, I know, but I'm just saying,
like, you don't even have to.
But I'm like, well, because I'm paying for this for them and that in them, and I'm instilling in them, and I'm giving them opportunities I didn't have, and for me, that's way better than like being in a house that's empty and saying, no, we can't afford this and you can't do that, and you're just like growing up not fulfilled.
Well, I think, when we look at other cultures, I could not wait to get the fuck out of my house growing up, and then I went off to school. And then I had a terrible roommate situation in Charleston. I moved back, and I moved back in with my mom for a while. And it was almost like that's so frowned upon. But like other cultures, it isn't.
They do. Yeah.
Like other cultures, it's fine. And like whatever works for people. Like, if that's what you need, that's what you need.
But is it other cultures, or is it, again, something that's kind of been like white supremacy? Because I remember listening to podcasts, during the pandemic and hearing, like housewives, well established. They're like, oh yeah, we're right now, like, I'm on my parents' property. Mm-hmm. They're technically living with mom and dad, but why is it cool when they do it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
yeah,
that's something we have to look at, because I'm like, my goal is basically to have land that I'm going to give to my boys that, they can build on and whatever. Like, I'm not trying to be up in your business, but know that this is yours.
Right.
And I don't understand, like, why we can't do that and why that's looked at weird. And like 18, you get out and you're on your own.
Yeah. We're like, I was still, even now, because, earlier I said something about fake adults or whatever. Like,
yeah.
Even now, I'm like, am I really an adult sometimes?
No.
Like, and when we were in our 20s, I remember seeing a post about that before. Like, your 20s are just like your late teens. And I was like, that is absolutely right.
It is.
You're not really all the way mature. Well, and air quotes here.
You're not. No, you're not.
Until 30s.
What is it? Until 30, where your brain's fully developed.
Yeah.
And I look back, I remember, and in my 20s, I was like, I got married at 25, and I feel like that's so young now. But back then, I felt so old. I was like, let's hurry up. I need to have kids. And, now I'm looking back, and I feel like I'm living in my 40s what I should have did in my 20s.
And it's funny because I get like, I'm single with no kids currently. And I have like the back and forth with people about that, because then some of them look at me like, oh, I wish I did it like you. And then I'm like, oh, but I wish I did it like you. So there's always like, people.
Yeah, hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thankful for the way that I did it. It wasn't always easy, but I am truly thankful for it. I tell my boys all the time, like, I'm like, you guys were literally like lifesavers. So that's why I just put so much into them, because they literally like saved my life and gave me a reason to live and be better, do better. But Sage, my youngest, he's like, I think I'm just going to stay single till I'm 30 and just work and make a lot of money. I'm like,
yes, as you should.
I'm like,
let me applaud that. Yes,
do it. Whereas my oldest, he's like, well, I want to have kids. I don't want to wait till I'm too old and da-da-da-da. And I'm like, just wait. Because right now, he's like my straight A kid. I'm like, power to you, because, mommy wasn't a straight A kid. And I tell him, like, bust your butt for the next few years. Like, you're already going to get college credit. Graduate from college early, and you let me know. I will start saving now, and we'll travel. I will take you on a bomb-ass trip anywhere you want to go. I was like, do not rush down to be in a relationship. I was like, because he's like, but I can travel with them. I said, Logan, I was like, there is nothing like being alone and just being selfish and just doing for you.
As long as you can.
As long as you can.
Especially like what I like to tell people, because, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but sometimes when I see people's like Instagram bios or something, and they're like, mom, wife, comma, comma, comma. And I'm like,
that used to be me on Twitter.
And I'm like, what about you?
I was like, mom, wife, sister.
Like, what about I am this person, comma, then the other titles. Like, and I think, and I'm grateful that I had the lifestyle that I've had to be aware of that, to understand, like, I'm me first before I'm these other titles, before I can help other people. Like,
Absolutely.
I need to pour into myself, because I'm not shit without that.
No. And yoga actually got me to that, to make me realize that selfish is not a bad word. Just like discipline is not a bad word. That's another thing that I credit yoga to, is these words that we grew up thinking were bad. Like, like when we don't want to share something, like, oh, you're selfish, you're this and that. So it gets like that negative connotation to it. But I'm like, oh, I've got to be selfish. So for me, that is doing my skincare. That is doing my yoga. That is waking up a little bit early. So when that alarm...
A little bit early?
Okay, all right, I'm an early bird. But anyways, getting my stuff done. So when that alarm goes blasting at 5:50 a.m. and I hear my son running downstairs like a bat out of hell, I'm ready to greet him.
That's the Gemini, isn't it?
Yes.
Yep. I got a nephew like that.
Ready to greet him with that smile. No matter what he throws at me, I'm his constant, which his therapist told me. She's like, I know it's rough on you, but you're his constant. I'm like, but I get it all. She's like, I know, but trust me, it's a good thing. I'm like, okay, I'm tired. She's like, I know, but just, it's good. So I'm ready, like, hey, bud, what are we having? French toast sticks, cereals, and.
Well, and that's where people mess up. And I tell a lot of my clients that, like, make sure, even if it is 10 minutes, because you can start there. For me, it's Mondays.
Yes.
I have a whole Monday to myself. But you've got to give yourself time before you give others time. If it is 10 minutes of you just like talking to yourself of whatever, like you need that time for you before you pour into others, because you get resentful.
Yep. And I tell people, I even tell people do 1 minute when they start like meditation and breath work, because people always think you have to just like have nothing in your mind. And again, that's not what it's about. Lies, you guys. Stop. You can be thinking all the things. That's how I know when I'm really deep into my meditation. I tell them like 1 minute, focus on your breath. Don't do any more. Don't do any less until it becomes a habit, and then grow from there. Because what I want to do first is instill it in people. And people struggle with a minute. 1 minute out of how many minutes we have in the day.
Right.
And then I even suggest next time you're at the grocery store, instead of pulling out your phone when you're waiting in line, just stare at something and breathe.
Because we used to have that.
That's your meditation.
We used to have that.
You know what I used to do when I would go to the banks and stuff? I would pull out a book and read while I wait in line. And so I've been starting to do that more. Like I always have like a book with me or something. So if I get somewhere early, I was about to bust out my book and read a page or two. So.
Well, because we're filled with distractions all the time. And I've spoken on here about that before. You can't even go to the gas station now without like the TV monitor at the gas pump. And I'm like, oh, I don't need sound right now.
Do you know how many times that thing has terrified me?
Yes, because it's always really loud. And you're like, what the fuck
Why
are
is
you
Maria Menounos up in my ear?
Yes. Why are you here? Yeah. So yeah, those quiet moments are important, especially if you are a caregiver, especially if you have children, especially if you're just pouring into others. Like you need that time for yourself.
Yes.
So shout out to you for
Yes.
I give you shit about your early mornings, but I get it. I get it.
But also that goes into like the dosha. My dosha is I'm an early riser. And that's another thing that we need to stop getting on people about being morning people and not. Some people are just not morning people, you know. Once again, Janelle, she's going to send me a crap ton of texts and Voxers at night. And she knows I'm not going to respond. But in the morning, I'm going to be ready with all my notes. And I know she'll respond when she responds. And that's what people need to start understanding. And stop being so judgmental, like, oh, you need to get up early. You need to do this and you need to do that. Not everybody functions that way.
No, that's not how my circadian rhythm is set up.
No, not at all. And that's totally fine. But we have been instilled into a 9-to-5 life. And then, you know, even with schooling, having to get up early.
They've been training us for the 9-to-5 life since schooling. So.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just the undoing of that as you become an adult.
It, you guys. It's going to be okay. Just breathe and undo.
It will. So you have, I know you mentioned the Dormant podcast, Self-Created, and then the Horror Hues.
Yes.
Where you speak on horror movies.
So, yes. So
and
horror
it's solo.
Hues. It's solo, and I'm bringing people in, and I might bring you in. I am going to bring you in.
Hey.
So it's a Horror Hues. It's an urban legend and horror movie podcast told through a Black woman's perspective. So, like I said, I've always loved horror movies. Love them. Loved urban legends. I remember, I don't know if it's the movie Urban Legend that did it, or if I was doing it beforehand, but I remember just going to the library and getting all the books I can about urban legends and reading them. And I kind of hate how the internet and Snopes came around and started like debunking things. I'm like, no, I want to believe that there's a crazy old lady behind me and it's actually like a man wrapped up in a blanket carrying an axe. Okay. Like, let me have that fear because that's how I've survived this long. All right.
It's not the life I want to live. I don't want to think about those things.
I wouldn't go camping for the longest because
you're Black?
Yes. Well,
that's white people shit.
Okay, but I love camping now. Black folks, camp, okay? Get out there, camp, hike. We need it. It's amazing.
I do hike. Well, I fake hike now, but I'd be up for like a glamping before a camping. Like let me dip my toe in it first.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But get out in nature, y'all. Okay, that is. Listen, that's another thing they took from us. Honestly, I love to kayak. All of that stuff. Like those were things that. Who do you think taught them? Honestly,
yeah.
Who do you think taught them? It was us. It's not white people shit. A lot of white people shit. Was Black people shit first, okay?
It was.
So don't be coming at me when I say I want to jump in water and swim with sharks and stuff, okay?
Or me when I want to do mind-altering psychedelics and such. Like, these things were passed down from shamans, and colonization happened.
Exactly. Okay. See, look, you're getting me heated. Okay.
Am I, or is this you?
So it's just me. So I'm like, I wouldn't go camping forever because there was a Friday the 13th where Jason zipped up a girl in a sleeping bag and knocked her up against a tree. And I was like, oh, hell no. Jason ain't catching me. Okay? Because couldn't tell me he was real. I'm terrified of killers that don't speak. So Michael Myers, Jason, they terrify me. Freddy, he talks too much, whatever. So he's like my least favorite.
I'm just scared of more of the paranormal things because I very much feel like those...
Never done it for me.
Well, because I feel like they happen, or like exorcism things. Not necessarily, let me not say paranormal part, but exorcism things. I'm like, because those things happen.
I can understand like the scared aspect of that, but I guess like when it comes to movie wise, I don't like it because it's so much a jump scare. I'm like an 80s girl. I want like tits, ass, gratuitous sex, and then you're gonna die.
Okay.
So that's like
that makes
that's
sense.
what raised me.
Okay.
Yeah, I've just like always loved horror movies, and I would like listen to podcasts, and of course you watch these movies, and it's just like filled with white people and white people's opinions, and I'm like, well, I'm Black and I like it and I want to talk about it. So I would do it on the Self-Created podcast because Janelle, she just does not do horror movies at all. And so I would have people on and we would talk about it. And I'm like, well, I want to explore this more because, horror lives in my heart year round. I'm not new to this. I'm true to this. So, and then again, urban legends, just love just reading about urban legends, and I want to take it further and just do urban legends from different cultures, different backgrounds, because I also love Greek mythology. But I'm like, again,
I do enjoy Greek mythology.
But again, we're hung up on like white people, Greek mythology, and other cultures have mythology as well that need to be talked about.
Absolutely.
So the episode, I released it today. I interviewed my parents because, like I said, we're from Panama, and there's two figures. One's the Tuli Vieja, and she's known more as La Llorona from Mexican culture. And then there's also the Cristo Negro, Black Christ. And so
Black Jesus.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, right. I know. I remember the first time seeing it, I'm like, what? Jesus is black? And that's my dad said that was his impression as well. So that's what I brought in. I'm like, I don't want to start with like Greek mythology and be like, let's talk about Athena, even though she is my favorite. That's great. But I want to hear about like what my parents know and their history and their culture. And I had someone comment, they're like, wow, I never knew this. Thank you so much for sharing this. And so that's what I want to do with this podcast, is bring stories that are told from a Black person's perspective that may not be told so greatly from a white person's perspective, because what really kind of was the catalyst as well is, so my sister and I were vendors. With our business, we vend, so we go to different markets, and we went to Savannah for one, and our thing was going to be nice dinner, and we'll go on a ghost tour, because I'm like, hell yeah, like I want to hear the dirtiness, like whose throat got slit, all this stuff. I was not impressed. It was like everywhere you walk, there's a dead body, and I'm like, well, that's America, so.
This is stolen land.
So like Shania Twain, that don't impress me much.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. There's dead bodies below us now.
This is America.
Right, exactly. And a lot of the stories were told like, and then they lined up 8 slaves and they just shot them in the head. All right, and let's keep on moving. And
right.
You're like, wait a minute.
How did we get here?
How did we get here? Why were these slaves shot in the head? Because I guarantee you, as slaves, they probably did nothing wrong because they didn't want to be here.
Right.
What were their names? What were they into? What is their history?
Right.
And so, like, why are we just sensationalizing it? And there was another podcast that talked about it. It was a Black guy that went on tours, and he found out a lot of the stories were actually made up. And there was one story I'm going to do. I learned her name was Alice Riley. And she... I think she was Irish, and she was brought here to Savannah, and she was owned by someone, and they're like, she was considered a witch because she liked to work with herbs. I'll not forget, my sister turned around to me and she goes, oh! And I'm like, what you trying to say? And like, again, the whole thing was sensationalized. You're like, you see that CVS right there? Well, that used to be the jail. And that's where Alice Riley stayed until she had her baby, and 3 days later, she was hung right here. And I'm like, well, okay, you said she was
How did we get here?
Exactly. You said she was an herbalist, so what was her favorite concoctions? Like, let's learn about that. So that's what I want to bring.
That's Gemini brain.
Yeah.
I was writing down recently like what I've learned from all of the signs, and Gemini is ask all the questions.
Yes. Yeah, we are. Oh,
ask all, because my mom,
my youngest.
Yeah, and my mom will I'll tell her a story and she'll ask me something like, oh, well, what does she do? Or what? And I didn't ask that. But people already tell me enough. I don't need to ask more.
Right. Yes.
They'll tell me what I need to know.
Yes.
That's
where I am. I'm like, I want to know like how we went from here to here, what happened to the baby, you know, all of that, you know, not just if you listen closely, you might see her walking, and if you're carrying a baby, she might come and get, you know, like, okay, well, everyone has that story, but
there's one of those everywhere.
Exactly.
Yep.
Let's dig a little bit deeper. So that's what I want to do with this podcast. So, and then I do, want to have guests on. So I had someone on before, and we talked about a movie we both enjoyed, and it's great. We talked about, you know, the Black person's perspective of watching these movies, because a lot of times in these films, they have Black people doing like the stupid ass white people shit, you know, tripping and falling or splitting up. And so I talked about The Blackening, which was so good.
I listened to some of that, but I didn't want to ruin it because I haven't seen the movie yet.
Oh,
so.
okay.
Don't
I highly suggest that you watch it.
It's on my to-do list.
Watch it with an altered mind.
I sure will. I'll watch it high. I can say that on this show.
Watch it high.
I'll watch it high.
Oh, trust me. You will.
They know I get high on this show. They should know.
There's one scene in it, and when you watch it, let me know. I'm like, this is so Shiana.
Okay.
Actually, there's a couple of scenes.
Okay.
But
I'm glad that you think of me when you see people getting high.
there's just like,
yay.
I may have been high when I watched it.
Yay.
I was like, cracking. I was like having the best time in the theater.
I just saw Strays with the dogs talking.
Yes, I remember.
Man.
Okay, I saw that. Yes.
Good times. See Strays if you have not. It is, I said it's for adults that saw Homeward Bound growing up.
Okay.
Homeward Bound was my shit. Chance.
Yeah.
Sassy.
I watched it like once or twice.
Well, me with the animals.
Okay.
See if this was a movie about
I feel
herbs.
like this stuff was like so kiddie. You know?
No, this was.
You know what? You know what animal movies I watch? One's called like Man's Best Friend, where the dog is like attacking everybody.
No. No.
That's actually a good movie. Like he actually like ripped out the brakes of the husband, and like the husband like got into a car accident and stuff because he was like genetically like made in the lab and stuff.
Cujo.
It's kind of like Cujo, but it was like Cujo on crack.
Okay, like Cocaine Bear, but a dog.
That was good too.
It was.
Anyways, and so yeah, I want to bring on, you know, people of color to be like, so what do you think about this? You know, that happened in this movie, and like, yeah, that's some bullshit. And I even want to talk about books because I love to read. And there was an author, and in fact, I did a repost. I had someone on the podcast, Brenda Lynn, and she's half Black as well, and he did a Black character a certain kind of way, and we talked about how we felt about that. And so that's what I want to bring, that you're just not going to get from a white podcast, and nothing wrong with that, but it's like they just don't know better. I don't know what it's like to be white and privileged, so they don't know what it's like to be Black and not privileged, and that's just life.
Yeah. Very 6'2" of you anyway.
Yes.
You know, that role model, like nobody's doing it. I guess I got to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
The life we live. It's cool though.
Yeah.
What is your medicine?
Okay, so my medicine, obviously, yoga, meditation, breath work, reading. I've gotten so back into reading a lot lately, and I'm loving it. Karate is my major medicine right now. I just started training in weapons, and I absolutely love it.
Yay.
So, yeah, that's my medicine. Of my boys, of course, you know, but that's a given.
That's not always. Sometimes it's not the medicine for the parents. Their children aren't.
That's true. I know. Yeah, but I'm like, and I think people know, like, I'm obsessed with them. Like, when they're gone, I miss their energy. Like, I can tell a difference in myself, even though they drive me crazy and I need that break. Like, I miss that energy. So, but I think it's because I instilled so much into them.
Absolutely.
You know? So,
yeah, and they're an extension of you.
Yeah, they truly are. All the good parts. Yeah.
Not the bad parts.
Well, you know, I did my best.
So your podcast is out on Wednesdays?
Yes.
Okay. Horror Hughes.
Corey Hughes.
All right.
Yes.
And check her out for her stretching.
Yes.
Check her out for her Reiki, her breath work. She does all the things.
Yes.
Sebastian Harper products.
Yes. SebastianHarper.com. I literally tell people, Google Shanika Pishi. I'm the only one in the world.
That's nice. I feel like I'm the only Shiana Rivers.
Yeah. It kind of worked out. I went from a green to a Pishi. There's definitely other Shanika greens out there, but there's not another Pishi.
Okay. I'll have all of this in the show notes too, in case they'll have that. Thank you for joining me today.
Of course, thank you. This was great.
Yeah. Shout out to everybody listening, tuning in. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, share, subscribe to my Patreon. check out Shanika's shit, check out my shit, watch our shit, support our shit. We're here to do good things and big things for you guys, and we can't do it without your help. So
All the shit.
All right. Make sure you meditate and hydrate, and I will catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Who You Callin' Holistic. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. You can find me and all my services on Sheanah.com. That's SHEANAH.